actually only one conversation that ever happens here. I was going to say we're moving from embodiment into mindfulness or in self-inquiry, but we're not, right? Are we, John? There's no moving from anything to anything. It's just different languaging around pretty much the same thing, as I see it. And that actually could be an interesting way to start, because some people probably look at each of your work with mindfulness and self-inquiry as somewhat separate. And what are you doing on stage together when you have different shticks, different, different games or different focuses? And it could be kind of curious just to have you share a little bit about how you see when you do teach or you do lead sessions, what do you see yourself as leading? And and how there might be similarities or different approaches to each of your work. Is that a good way to, yeah?
So what I appreciated...
And what you appreciate about each other would be great.
What I appreciated this morning is sitting with you, John, with the sound and the clear direction. It was so clear, and it came out of that, it felt to me that authentic experience of you in it. So it was so easy just to sit by that well and just drop and drop in your words. You know, it's to me, it's not like something you can practice and memorize. Didn't it feel that way? You were just dropping in so simply, and the visual so clear, and allowing those answers to meet your questions, and then more deeply again and more deeply again. And as I see inquiry, as I offer it, it allows people to identify with the judgments that they're thinking and believing, and then just drop into using those 4 questions as the guide, a kind of dropping into the well, like there's something wrong with me, with eyes closed and just sitting in, is it true? Is it true? And then just contemplating that, the way we dropped into the well this morning. And then noticing, and this is what I appreciated about your discussion with Eileen, is noticing how you react when you believe the thought. She described it so well. You know, the distance, the worry, you know, I can't say it better than she did, because she also, coming out of experience, an authentic experience that we all know so well. And what I love about inquiry, that kind of guided mindfulness, because we are mindfully focused on, is it true? Focused on how we react the moment we believe the thought, and all those emotions. And then, as Eileen said, it's so connecting, and sitting with you was just so connecting all the way. And experiencing that is embodiment, and it's who am I without the thought, without believing that, you know, those harsh judgments, like, for example, there's something wrong with me. I mean, who am I without that? I can hear. I'm aware. I'm present. So as we mindfully, using that beautiful term that you have attracted so many of us to, I love it. And you know, sitting in that, we become comfortable in our lives and in the present moment, and noticing the anticipating. It's like, if you want a little fear and terror, get a future. And just in case that's not enough, if you want a little depression, get a past. And notice how you react when you believe these thoughts. It's like you're scattered. But it's okay you know, just notice who would you be without what you're thinking and believing that judgment in the moment, and aware and connected and and present.
So John, that seems, how would you put in, I know language never is
Well,
sufficient.
the way you framed this, you know, it's like, okay, are you and I the same or different? Are we teaching the same thing?
Yeah.
It's a familiar koan in the Zen tradition.
Yeah.
Because it undoes the mind that thinks. And so I like to think of all of these things, and just a deep bow to you and Eileen for the earlier conversation. And I said this to her, I mean, she is so real. And what struck me was, in both of you, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and not feel like, oh, I'm the person that has it all together. And then I put on a front, a mask, so to speak. And when we allow that to sort of dissipate, we know it's there, it's an impulse, but then it dissipates, then the authenticity is not literal, I was going to say virtual embodiment. And you saw it in Eileen, you saw it in yourself, and just how modestly you spoke about how this began, okay? So that it's personal, and at the same time, it's not at all personal. And that's, I think, what we're groping for. It's like, in some sense, when we ask those questions, your questions, or we listen deeply in the well, maybe you realize that after the why am I really, 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 really here, maybe what came up was, I don't know. Did anybody have I don't know come up in some fundamental way? Mm-hmm. So that's a form of knowing, the not knowing. But the knowing that you don't know is a very powerful, transformative way of waking up, which is the subject of this. How do we actually wake up from the dream of all of the kind of thought stream? And we're almost always, I mean, one of the things about mindfulness is as soon as you start to pay attention to what's on your mind, let's say you've never heard of mindfulness, never heard of meditation, just invite people, let's just watch what's coming up in the mind. It's almost all future or past. It's like the two places we most like to hang out. And then you realize you actually make
or
real.
Most don't like to hang out.
Make real.
Little of this, little of that.
Exactly. And so it becomes a kind of a way of avoiding the actuality of the only moment we're ever in. And then if we're talking about inquiry, that's a kind of deep investigation, a deep looking into who am I, as you said, or what am I?
And also honoring the judgments. You know, the ego we have tried to kill, we have shamed it, we've blamed it, we've tried to get rid of it. But through inquiry, we can identify these judgments, these ego judgments, identify them and give them a voice. You know, to meet them, I see every judgment, every thought, every concept that runs through my head as like a homeless child. You know, what are we going to do? Kick a kid?
Right. So that's, in some sense...
You know, kick them out? You know, we want to do that with our own kids occasionally. We don't. So if we see our thoughts as children and meet them through, as, you know, in my words, inquiry, these 4 questions, and meet them with understanding, they get a chance to just, without being stopped or shamed or blamed or ignored. You know, your children won't ignore you when they want something, and they don't stop until they get it or whatever happens in that situation. But thoughts are the same. So it gives them, you know, it gives this mind, the ego mind, a home in itself, a place to rest where it doesn't have to scream, where the mind is met with understanding, and that's the end of war. So all these thoughts from the past, misunderstood, create our future. So really, there's no thought that isn't in the past, projected on. So inquiry is, you know, it's again, just meditating on a judgment and moment in time, going
you
into the
often
well.
refer putting out the welcoming mat, I think, John. Is
Yeah, and asking yourself, is my anger or my sadness or my fear, is my awareness of my anger angry? And you can investigate. You ask yourself and look, is my awareness of my fear actually afraid? Is my awareness of my sadness sad? And then you can even investigate the my.
Yeah.
Who is it that's even caught in that stream?
Yeah.
And it's, in some sense, one way of thinking about observing one's thoughts in the mind, and I'm sure you've all had this experience, is when you get very quiet and very still, and thoughts bubble up. They're kind of like coming off, seeding from the bottom of a pot of boiling water, and they come to the top, and they go poof, all by themselves. You don't have to do anything. If you're truly in the knowing and the not knowing, and the non-self-identifying with the thoughts, they self-liberate in a certain way. It's almost like touching a soap bubble. Your awareness touches the soap bubble, and it goes poof. And then you don't need to create a future or a past, because that's thinking. And when you are awarenessing, it's kind of nothing wrong with thinking, except that it imprisons us constantly when we're not mindful of it. But once we befriend thoughts, then they're no longer, we're bringing the children back into the family, so to speak.
Yeah, and the next time they come, they're meeting understandings, so they're no longer a problem. You can see, it's understood that it's like if we're fearing, are we fearful? Are we afraid of something in the world, someone or something in the world? Or are we afraid of what we're thinking and believing about that something? It's what I'm believing about that something that is the cause of my fear, not that something. The world it's a beautiful place to live once you understand the mind.
Well, a couple real quick things. I'm hearing a slight echo, just so the people who's doing the sound can address that. But I'm wondering, because I know you're both in relationships, you both have children, and I know a lot of us get triggered in relationships and also with children. So I'm curious, does that still happen for both of you? And when that does happen, what is your process around that? Because I think a lot of people would be like, cool, I'm totally into the present moment, I'm noticing my mind, and yet that damn ex or that damn whatever, right? How can my kid do this for the 100th time, And so there's certain close things that I think grab us more than other things, and I'm curious if you have particular experience and guidance around those very touchy, delicate things, which comes from any two people living together with different desire systems, of course. How can you not have challenges? But I'm curious in your own lives, and to whatever extent you feel free, how to work with triggers, because I think that's something. Anybody have get triggered? That's something that as like, I'm a spiritual person, I'm so peaceful. Oh, I just love you, and yet, this other thing comes out. And so, how do we make space for that?
So if there's a problem in my family, that's on me. Someone just said, what? Living with Stephen is to live with the perfect man. I can honestly say that. What I'm thinking and believing about Stephen, now that could use a little work. So it can be very quiet in our house. But once I once I have questioned what I'm thinking and believing about Stephen, it's like there's Stephen. You know, the real Stephen. But if I'm having a problem with Stephen, it is something that happened or I'm afraid will happen. And in the meantime, he's just Stephen. So am I angry at the Stephen that I imagine from the past, even if it's a nanosecond? Or am I angry with Stephen as I identify him in the future, which he's obviously innocent? I mean, either way, he's innocent, right? One's gone, one's not happening. So if I'm angry at Stephen, I'm nuts. I'm angry at this Stephen or this Stephen.
How about this Stephen
But
who's
never
right there
Stephen.
not doing the dishes? He's right there, and he's just not doing the dishes. And you see him, you see the dishes, and he's just right.
Now that would be Stephen. Sometimes. But if I believe that he should do the dishes and he's not doing them, you know, then there's Stephen not doing them, and then there's this unkind husband that of the future, and me having to do the dishes. You see that image of me having to do the dishes? Okay, because of him? Okay, well, he's just standing there with a smile on his face. He loved dinner. So I want to make sure I'm attacking the right person. Because they're going to get it when I find one. So it's kind of like that. And my children the same. And you know, these 4 questions, I can honestly say I don't live with my children saying, is it true? That doesn't happen. So like Stephen, you know, I want the real deal. I don't want to live with an imagined spouse or family. I want to live with the authentic, the real deal. So again, it really is the end of war. It was the end of war in my home. My home. My home.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
John, do you have anything to add or subtract from that?
Well, you know, I've spent some time with John and
Mila?
Stephen, and we have visited, and they move like that, and they're just it is so lovely just to spend a couple of days with how they are. You know, how they are. It's just, mwah.
So with that story, I don't know what to say.
Oh, so good.
Oh, it was wonderful.
So good.
Being together. And I think you're famous for saying, if you want to fight with reality, you're going to lose every time. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Argue with
in
reality.
family, how many of you are part of family life in some way or other on a regular basis? Raise your hand. So okay, so we're talking about sort of something that's very close to all of our hearts. And for me, it really comes down to what is actually so. You know, we are continually creating realities in our mind, as you just pointed out, that are not what's actually going on, and attributing motives to people that are, you know, just another part of some story that we're creating. So, and of course, have you noticed that we often are like really wonderful with everybody else, but in the family somehow it, you know, we devolve to our, sometimes you might say your worst self. So there's no better meditative environment for inquiry, for investigation, for meditation, for mindfulness, for heartfulness than the family. Because your children and your spouse, unless you're Katie, are going to wind up pushing every single one of your buttons that you thought you've transcended.
Well, don't leave Katie out of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I just didn't want to say it. And
Or do.
you're going to get a chance to recognize that in this moment, I don't use the word spiritual, but whatever you want to attribute, your mindfulness practice, your best self, your so beautiful, wise, caring, spiritual self is completely evaporated and you're a stark, raving lunatic in that moment. Why? Because you're attached to a particular view or outcome. Now, the rotation in consciousness is, in that very moment, just as you're saying, in that very moment, can I wake up to what's actually going on? And stand in an embodied way in understanding that this moment is a profound opportunity. It is the curriculum. The non-dishes, the issues around this or that or whatever it is, or the just saying, I didn't even sign up for this. I never thought that it was going to be like this. My image of how family life was going to be, or this child, or whatever it is, that it was going to be like this. But now it's like that. Wait a minute. I don't want this. So who's that on? It's on you. Okay? That's the curriculum of this moment. That's the meditation practice, not this, in that moment. So we can ask ourselves, if you're struggling with thinking that it's a certain way and telling yourself a story about how it is, and you'll get lots of evidence. You can gather enormous amounts of evidence that it is that way.
30 years of evidence.
Then,
All that evidence,
then
it's
you are
here.
basically constructing a prison where nothing can happen. You don't see any way out, and in a certain way, you're creating like a prison for others in the family so that there is no way out because you're in this mind prison that's sort of consensually established or that you're always fighting over. So there's no better opportunity than family life for letting the messiness actually become the teacher of the moment. And then the turnaround, or what I call this orthogonal rotation in consciousness, like nothing has to change. Nothing's different in any moment, except you are actually holding the space in a way that before you were caught in the thought stream. And then the next moment is like surprise. Daddy's not doing that anymore in this moment. And then you find new degrees of freedom. Not in some conceptual enacting of embodied mindfulness, but right here, before words, underneath words, in this moment. And that's how we exercise the muscle. And so, to me, I mean, we're born, we grow old, we die. Some famous scientist thousands of years ago observed that old age, sickness, and death, and then also the potential for wakefulness sometime during that trajectory. Why not now? And then the conditions are like never right for it. Have you noticed? Like, I'd really like to meditate, only not now. It's like now is so boring, or my body hurts, or I'm busy, or my phone, you wouldn't believe my email. So, but there's only now. So when you can rotate in that way and hold, then life becomes not only the practice, it becomes the teacher. And every aspect of it, whatever it is, whether it's aging, whether it's dealing with parents, whether it's with children, whether it's with spouses, or partners, or this kind of relationship or that kind of relationship, it's the curriculum. And the practice is not reading something in a book that you're to do now. It's not about doing. It's about being in wise relationship, and then you have to figure out what wise means in order to be free. Now, I'll just say one more thing, is that we're talking a lot about wakefulness, and it's deeply related to liberation, to freedom. You use that kind of language. And it's not about some other time. It's about now. It's not like 10 years from now, if you meditate in a cave in the Himalayas, you'll be any more enlightened. I like to sometimes think, and people project onto other people how enlightened they are. I really feel that to a first approximation at least, we should maybe abandon the thought of enlightenment or some special state that if you meditate long enough in the right way, then it will happen to you, and then all those problems will be in the past, only your past will be littered with casualties, including yourself. Follow that path. But instead, that it's this moment, okay? That this is the opportunity. And when we hold it in that way, it's not like there are enlightened people. It's more like there are only enlightening moments. And the more of them you string together, in some sense, the more fluent the conversation, the more fluent the embodiment, the more fluent the dance.
You know, what's important to me is not, am I enlightened? Yeah. It's not,
So you
am
said
I
what's important for you
enlightened?
is not am I enlightened?
Yes, not am I enlightened, but am I kind? That's it.
Yep.
So, and the curriculum, life is the curriculum, as you were saying, but that curriculum, I have come to see clearly that the universe is friendly.
Is what?
The universe is friendly. It's a match to our true nature. And in that friendly universe, if I don't see it that way, then I question what I'm believing, and there it is again. I'm getting through the smog, the degree, the corrupted real script going on. So in that understanding, the only, my emotions let me know that I'm off. So the curriculum, understanding the true nature of everything, that it is not mean, and it's not doing something terrible to us, but within that curriculum, it's like I've come to know myself. So of course that's what I would project onto the world. So in this friendly universe, it leaves me just here now, and that's true for all of us. You're all here now. We've all got that in common. But in this friendly universe, it's this curriculum, it leaves me, and I'll put it here, but without the corrupt against my true nature, that corrupted mind, I can see I'm free to see what really is. I'm excited. Without these stories going on, something opens my eyes in the morning, and I'm excited. I'm using the word I'm excited because I don't know the future. I'd get one if it were necessary. It's absolutely unnecessary. I'm excited. So someone asked me before I came on, it's like something about, I hope you do it well. And I thought, what is it I'm supposed to do well? And then I remember also there is no curriculum. The curriculum was in noticing that. So I wouldn't come here with a curriculum. I'm too excited to see what unfolds. And in a friendly universe, you don't have to guess. So anything that would cost me that friendly universe would be a judgment about you or about me or anyone or anything, any situation that would cost me vision. And in that excitement of don't know, in that excitement of not needing to know, this.
Something
Now.
can unfold.
Yeah, and we don't know what it is, but when we know it's true nature, here it comes. Here comes the curriculum. If there's one thing off, it's me. That's
can count on that.
exciting. It's like a one.
We have a.
That's the danger of the personal pronoun. So please hear what Katie just said on a lot of different levels. If there's one thing wrong in the universe, it's me. Don't take that personally.
Yeah. No, it's the way I am seeing. It's what I'm thinking and
the
believing.
conditioned
Very,
mind.
very good.
So we are getting a message from the friendly universe.
Please
I want
wrap
to avoid-
up. And I don't have paper. Let's.
I want to
To
resist
wrap
that.
up the glass.
I want to resist.
We
I want to
don't have a
resist that
ball.
reality. But I also know that there are rules to the universal game. And mainly, I really want to appreciate both of you and thank you for bringing your
Thank
heart
you.
and
Sorry.
allowing us to unfold.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And how there might be similarities or different approaches to each of your work. Is that a good way to, yeah?
So, what I appreciated.
And what you appreciate about each other would be great.
What I appreciated this morning is sitting with you, John, with the sound and the clear direction. It was so clear, and it came out of that, it felt to me that authentic experience of you in it. So it was so easy just to sit by that well and just drop, and your words, you know, it's to me, it's not like something you can practice and memorize. Didn't it feel that way? You were just dropping in so mindfully focused on, is it true? Focused on how we react the moment we believe the thought and all those emotions. And then, as Eileen said, it's so connecting, and sitting with you was just so connecting all the way. And experiencing that is embodiment, and it's who am I without the thought, without believing that, you know, those harsh judgments, like, for example, there's something wrong with me. I mean, who am I without that? I can hear. I'm aware, I'm present. So as we mindfully using
There's actually only one conversation that ever happens here. I was going to say we're moving from embodiment into mindfulness or in self-inquiry, but we're not, right? Are we, John? There's no moving from anything to anything. It's just different languaging around pretty much the same thing, as I see it. And that actually could be an interesting way to start, because some people probably look at each of your work with mindfulness and self-inquiry as somewhat separate. And what are you doing on stage together when you have different shticks, different, different games or different focuses? And it could be kind of curious just to have you share a little bit about how you see when you do teach or you do lead sessions, what do you see yourself as leading? And what do you...
simply, and the visual so clear. And allowing those answers to meet your questions. And then more deeply again and more deeply again. And as I see inquiry, as I offer it, it allows people to identify with the judgments that they're thinking and believing, and then just drop into using those 4 questions as the guide, a kind of dropping into the well, like there's something wrong with me, with eyes closed and just sitting in, is it true? Is it true? And then just contemplating that, the way we dropped into the well this morning. And then noticing And this is what I appreciated about your discussion with Eileen, is noticing how you react when you believe the thought. She described it so well. You know, the distance, the worry, I can't say it better than she did, because she also, coming out of experience, an authentic experience that we all know so well. And what I love about inquiry, that kind of guided mindfulness, because we are